and the earth convulsed beneath the weight of divine wrath. Cities fell, mountains bowed, islands fled, but the church, glorified and gathered to her Lord, stood in heaven, awaiting the king's command. The great earthquake was not her judgment. It was her announcement. For when the shaking ended, the sky opened and the bridegroom appeared. The final shaking begins. Revelation describes a moment so violent, so creation-altering, that Scripture pauses to say nothing like it has ever happened since mankind first walked the earth. This is the great earthquake of the seventh bowl, the final shaking before the king appears. The seventh bowl is not just another judgment. It is the climax of God's wrath. It is the moment when heaven itself speaks, lightning fractures the sky, thunder rolls like the voice of many waters, and the earth convulses under the weight of divine justice. This earthquake is global, not regional. It is not centered on Jerusalem, nor Rome, nor Babylon alone. It is a planetary upheaval, a crust-shifting, mountain-flattening, island-removing event that resets the geography of the world. Revelation 16 verses 18 to 20 emphasizes the scale with deliberate repetition. Every island fled, every mountain vanished, and every city of the nations fell. This is not poetic exaggeration. It is a literal description of a world brought to its knees. The Great Earthquake is the demolition phase of the old world system. Before Christ builds his kingdom, the structures of rebellion must collapse. The quake is the divine wrecking ball that clears the earth for the reign of the king. This moment is not caused by natural tectonics. It is not the result of fault lines or volcanic pressure. It is a supernatural act of God, a direct intervention from the throne of heaven. The quake is accompanied by a voice from the temple in heaven saying, "It is done." This is the same finality spoken at the cross, but now applied to the world system that has rejected the Lamb. The shaking is so severe that the nations cannot stand. Their cities crumble, their towers fall, their infrastructure collapses, and their armies lose their footing. The world is brought to silence. This is the moment when human pride is shattered. Every monument to human achievement, political, economic, military, and religious, collapses in a single global convulsion. The Great Earthquake is the final warning, the last trumpet blast of judgment, the final shaking before the sky opens and the king descends. The third temple and its fate. Before this earthquake occurs, Scripture reveals that a third temple will stand in Jerusalem. This temple is not symbolic. It is literal, physical, and central to end-time prophecy. Daniel 9 verse 27 speaks of sacrifices being stopped in the middle of the final 7 years. Sacrifices require an altar. An altar requires a temple. Therefore, a third temple must exist. Jesus himself refers to the holy place in Matthew 24 verse 15, pointing to a literal structure that will be desecrated by the Antichrist. This is not metaphor, it is geography. Paul writes in 2 Thessalonians 2 verse 4 that the man of sin will sit in the temple of God, declaring himself to be God. This requires a physical building in Jerusalem. This third temple is built in unbelief. It is constructed by Israel before they recognize their Messiah. It is a national attempt to restore worship without the one who fulfills it. The Antichrist will enter this temple at the midpoint of the tribulation. He will stop the sacrifices, break the covenant, and declare himself divine. This is the abomination of desolation. The third temple becomes the center of global blasphemy. It is no longer a house of prayer. It becomes the throne room of the man of sin. But the Antichrist does not destroy the temple. He desecrates it, occupies it, and weaponizes it, but he does not tear it down. The destruction of the third temple comes later, not by human hands, but by the hand of God during the great earthquake. When Revelation says every city of the nations fell, Jerusalem is included. The third temple, standing on the Temple Mount, collapses with the rest of the world's structures. The earthquake as divine demolition. The great earthquake is not random destruction. It is targeted, purposeful, and prophetic. It removes what must be removed to prepare for what must be built. The third temple, though central to prophecy, is temporary. It is not the millennial temple of Ezekiel 40 to 48. It is not the eternal structure of the kingdom. It is a transitional temple. God allows the third temple to be built for prophetic fulfillment, but he does not allow it to stand into the kingdom age. It must fall. The earthquake destroys the third temple because it has been defiled by the Antichrist. It has become the throne of the beast, the center of deception, and the symbol of rebellion. God does not preserve structures built in unbelief. He preserves his promises, not human architecture. The quake clears the Temple Mount for the construction of the fourth temple, Ezekiel's temple, which Christ himself will oversee. Ezekiel's temple requires a new topography, a raised Mount Zion, a river flowing from beneath the threshold, and a restructured land. The great earthquake prepares this. The quake is the transition between the age of rebellion and the age of restoration. It is the hinge between the tribulation and the kingdom. The destruction of the third temple is not a tragedy, it is a divine reset. It removes the counterfeit to make room for the true. When the dust settles, the world is ready for the appearing of the King. The church and the great earthquake. The church is not on earth when the great earthquake strikes. Scripture is clear. The church is not appointed to wrath. 1 Thessalonians 5 verse 9. The seventh bowl is wrath, the final stroke of God's judgment. Therefore, the church cannot be present for it. Revelation 19 shows the church in heaven, clothed in fine linen, prepared as the bride, before Christ descends to earth. While the earth shakes, the church stands in glory. While cities fall, the church stands in worship. While nations collapse, the church stands in the presence of the King. The great earthquake does not harm the church. It announces her moment. It signals the soon appearing of her bridegroom. The church returns with Christ after the earthquake, not before it. She rides behind him, not beneath the rubble. The church's role during the earthquake is heavenly, not earthly. She is watching, waiting, worshiping, and preparing to reign. The quake prepares the earth for the church's inheritance. It clears the world for the kingdom she will help administer. The church does not fear the earthquake. She anticipates the appearing that follows it. The great earthquake is the last sound the world hears before the sky opens and the King descends with his bride. The return of the King. Immediately after the seventh bowl, Revelation shifts scenes. The earth is silent. The dust settles. The nations tremble. And then heaven opens. John sees a white horse. He sees the rider. He sees eyes like fire, a robe dipped in blood, and armies following him. The great earthquake is the drumroll. The appearing of Christ is the crescendo. The King descends to judge the nations, destroy the Antichrist, and establish his kingdom. The third temple is gone. The Antichrist's throne is gone. Babylon is gone. The world system is gone. Only the King remains. Christ stands on the Mount of Olives, and Zechariah 14 says the mountain splits in two, another earthquake, but this time a local one, caused by his very presence. This second quake creates a valley of escape for the remnant of Israel. The first quake judged the world. The second delivers the faithful. Christ enters Jerusalem as King. The nations gather for judgment. The world enters a new age. The Temple Mount is prepared for construction. The fourth temple, Ezekiel's temple, will rise under the authority of the Messiah. The kingdom begins. The earth is restored. The nations are healed. The curse is lifted. The King reigns. The builder's conclusion. There will be a third temple. It will stand in Jerusalem before the midpoint of the tribulation. The Antichrist will desecrate it, occupy it, and declare himself divine within its walls. 53. But he will not destroy it. God will. The great earthquake of the seventh bowl will collapse the third temple along with every city of the nations. This destruction is not the end of worship. It is the end of counterfeit worship. The quake prepares the earth for the true temple, the millennial temple of Ezekiel 40-48. The church is not on earth for this destruction. She is in heaven, glorified, awaiting the command to ride with her King. And when the shaking ends, the sky opens and the King appears. As this chapter closes, the message stands with unmistakable clarity. The shaking of the nations is not the end, but the announcement of the King. Every prophecy fulfilled, every system collapsing, every tremor across the earth points to the moment when heaven opens and Christ returns in power. If this teaching strengthened your understanding, take a moment to like, share, and leave a comment. And if you haven't already, subscribe and tap the notification bell so you stay connected as we continue unfolding the truth, one revelation at a time.